I am so glad I've got that whiteboard because otherwise I would not have a clue. Yes, welcome along to this week's Women's Football Chat, your weekly show dedicated to the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. That's the FAWNL. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m. bringing you the very latest from the 6 divisions that make up the FAWNL. And we are really now in the midst of what I like to call silly season. We've got FA Cup, we've got County Cup, we've got League Cup, we've got League Plate. They're all getting postponed and moved about because the pitches are awful and etc, etc. And it just basically is a bit of a mess. This week, show relatively short. Not many league games because it was a County Cup weekend, some FA Cup involved in that, and then not many league games to talk about coming up either because it's FA Cup weekend again, because the FA Cup is every other week in this, I was going to say every fortnight, but yeah, every fortnight in this part of the season. So few league results which we can really dive into and a good look at the league tables as we near the halfway point of the season. You can see vaguely from the board behind me that some games have started to be put in for like the 17th of December, which is a County Cup day. So teams that aren't in County Cup have got games scheduled in when we already know they're out of the FA Cup, or with the league are assuming or hoping that the FA Cup will go as planned on the 10th and not roll over, and then it's all going to get messy again. But let's start then, as we usually do here, with the Northern Premier Division. And just the one game that took place at the City Ground, Nottingham Forest losing to Newcastle United by a 0-0. Casey Elson just before the hour mark with the only goal of the game in this one. As I said, the only game that took place in the Northern Premier Division this weekend, because most teams were in County Cup, predominantly the Birmingham County Cup, which Birmingham's actually done sensibly because they've split it into two now. So there's a 3, 4 and 5 if memory serves me right, and then a 6 and 7, or it's a 3 and 4 and a 5, 6 and 7. I know that Nick from the Women's Wolves pod, who listens every week, will correct me on that, but what it doesn't mean is you don't have Wolves going up against a tier 7 side and beating them 31-0. Sporting Cowser. We'll get onto that later, but and then you've got Huddersfield who beat Penistone Church 17-0 and what have you. But so Forest, yes, losing by a 0-0 against Newcastle. What it means for the league table then for Newcastle, it means that they moved to within just a point of the top of the table, and they've got a game in hand over Burnley. Wolves are now 6 points behind Newcastle, and Forest are 7 points behind Newcastle. They do all have a game in hand over Burnley, but even if Wolves and Forest win those games in hand, they are still 4 points behind Burnley with that game in hand, and Newcastle have got the same game in hand. So you're looking at 6 and 7 points now away from the top, plus Newcastle with a superior goal difference as well. It is starting to look very difficult for the likes of Forest, who are 7 points back. Wolves not necessarily so much. If I remember correctly, Wolves do still need to play Newcastle twice in the league. I could be wrong on that off the top of my head. No, Wolves do still have to play Newcastle twice in the league. They're playing them on the 4th of February away from home. And the home fixture is to be scheduled because it's not in there at the moment. But so Wolves, if they were to beat Newcastle twice, would close that gap. So that's a big difference there. But for Forest, you've got, Forest have dropped 9 points now, and you can only really drop 12 to 14 points if you want to win the league. So realistically, with 14 games to go in the season for Forest, they have to be winning a minimum of 12 of those 14 in order to mount a decent league challenge. Now, they still have to go to Newcastle away. Bear in mind, Newcastle have beaten them in the Cup and the league now. They have to go to Wolves away. I know they have beaten Wolves at home a couple of times in the Cup and in the league, but away is a different matter. And they've got to host Burnley. So you look at the league table and you think, well, Wolves have got to be pretty close to perfect now. Forest have got to do pretty much the same. You're almost getting to the stage where it's a two-horse race already between Burnley and Newcastle. So the mid-table is all exactly the same, and as is the bottom. But you look at the bottom two as well, and you think Huddersfield and Fylde, they've played 9 games each. Fylde are playing this weekend. We'll get onto that later. There's a 4-point gap between those two and safety. Halifax have got a ridiculous amount of games in hand. They've only played 5. They're averaging 1.4 points per game. When you add that up to 10, you double that for 10. They're on to 14, and then you're up in kind of 5th. So Halifax not really in a true location, you feel. West Brom with a game in hand can increase the gap, and then it's starting to look a bit difficult for Huddersfield and Fylde. They need to start getting some results quickly. They are going to play plenty of league games because they're not in the FA Cup, but they have got a cup game. So probably not going to see them get massively ahead in terms of the number of games played, but we never know. And they just need to pick up some results very, very quickly. Fylde have not won yet this season in the league. That's the Northern Premier Division. Let's move through to the... I would say we'll move through to the Southern Premier Division, but we're not going to because there were no games in that. So we're going to move through to Division 1 Midlands, where Leafield played twice this week. They had a Thursday night game against Solihull Moors. They were defeated in that one by 3 goals to 1. You can see we don't have timings on that as of yet, but Solihull Moors winning by 3 goals to 1 over Leafield Athletic. Goals in this one for Solihull coming to Anna Renkin, Tiana Russell-Cartwright and Emily Hornsby. Shannon McCann-Lloyd with the only goal for Leafield. But Leafield did manage to get a point for their efforts this week with a 2-2 draw against Lincoln. Bit of a back and forth game in this one. Catherine Pagan in the 19th minute had put Leafield in front before Tony McHamilton equalised at 8 minutes later. Pagan then put Leafield in front again in the 71st minute, but it only lasted 3 minutes this time before Leah Hardy equalised for Lincoln. 2-2. And the only other game in the Midlands, Loughborough Lightning nicking at the death a 3 points against Sutton Coldfield Town. They'd taken the lead very early, Zinnia Delgin in the 5th minute before Sutton equalised through Sarah Lampitt 10 minutes before half time. And then 90 plus 4, Doris Greenwood gets the winner for Loughborough Lightning. So Sutton Coldfield so close to holding Loughborough and getting a point that it is the home side that take all 3 points. So those are the results in Division 1 Midland. Just while I'm looking at the results as well, the County Cup ones that we're talking about. Plenty of home walkovers in this one. So Northampton, Russian and Diamonds pulled out of that. Stoke City's development side pulled out of the game against Leek Town. And obviously we've seen Wolves have beaten Boldmere St Michael's, and Aston Villa beat Solihull Moors Foundation. But the one that really sticks out to me is the 31-0 victory for Sporting Cowser against Stafford Town. What is the point? It was 16-0 at half time. Larry Walker scored 7. Leonie Joyce has scored 6. There's also been hat-tricks for Olivia Stubbs and Skye Owen. Sporting have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different scorers for their 31 goals. Only Natalie Hall, Maja Shijmwakiak and Laura Smith didn't score for Sporting Cowser, and of course one of those is going to be a goalkeeper. So, yeah, what is the point? We really need to look at this County Cup, because not only does it mess up the league scheduling, but they are pointless games. They really are. 31-0. What has anybody learned from that other than the risk of getting injured? Anyway, it's not going to change anytime soon, is it? Unless counties decide to go down the route that the Nottinghamshire FA have took and banning FAWNL sides from competing in the County Cup, something that Notts County were very unhappy about following their promotion this year. Speaking of Notts County, no game for them this weekend. They remain 2 points clear of the relegation zone. The only movement in Division 1 Midlands is Leafield Athletic with that 1 point they got against Lincoln, climbing from 12th to 11th. They are still in the relegation zone, but they are 2 points away from safety now rather than 3. They still have a much better goal difference than Notts County. Sheffield, though, do have 2 games in hand and have the best goal difference of any of those sides that are in immediate pressure of being into the bottom 2. So a win in either of those 2 games, one of which is coming up this weekend, would see them jump out of the relegation zone. Towards the top then, Loughborough Lightning extend their lead to 4 points after that late winner against Sutton Coldfield Town. So they're now 4 points clear of Peterborough United. And as I said, Leafield Athletic gaining just the point. Solihull Moors, who obviously beat them in the week, they got their 3 points there. Didn't climb any places. They already had a better goal difference than Northampton Town. So the only movement in Division 1 Midlands is right there at the bottom. Division 1 North then, just the 1 game to go through here as well, with Hull City winning by 2-0 away at Durham Sestra. A brace for Hope Knight in this one, the goal scorer. No times on there though. So Hull City with a 3 point, we're getting 3 points. That means they climb up to second in the table. They are now just 3 points behind Barnsley. That's the only movement in Division 1 North. Durham Sestra remain in 6th. Division 1 North, probably one of the closer leagues of them so far. You've got 5 teams within 3 points of each other down towards the bottom there, from York down to FC United of Manchester. Hull still applying the pressure on Barnsley. And see, those 2 sides met earlier on in the season. Barnsley winning by 2-1, and they are going to meet in the cup later on as well. But in the plate, sorry. But yeah, Barnsley, the reverse fixture of those 2 is not until March, and by that point we'll have obviously a much clearer idea of how much that fixture might mean. But it looks as though, particularly from a long way off, that could be a very important game towards the back end of the season. Middlesbrough, Leeds and Stockport are all really within touching distance. Stockport maybe less so, but Middlesbrough and Leeds have played an extra game over Barnsley and Hull. So if Barnsley and Hull were both to win those games in hand, you end up with a gap that is 7 and 4 points, and it starts to just edge away a bit like Burnley and Newcastle are in the Northern Premier Division. But yeah, not a huge amount of movement to talk about in Division 1 North either. Division 1 South East then, this was the one that had the most action. 3 games, including Cambridge City against Haywards Heath Town, because those sides had obviously agreed, Haywards and Maidenhead, that they were going to play their plate game on the 3rd of December rather than when it technically should have been played. So Cambridge City came out on top of that one by 5 goals to 1. Early scoring in this one because it was 4-1 at half time. 2 for Jade Barrett, 1 for Eva Hubbard, 1 for Jennifer Moore, and 1 for Rosie Wadhams with the goals for Cambridge City. No information about Haywards Heath Town, so that should be a fine. Yeah, no information on the scorers for Haywards Heath Town. Worthing 1, Norwich City 1. Chloe Winchester with Worthing's goal in the 17th minute. Ellie Smith with the goal for Norwich City. And AFC Wimbledon 4, London Seaward 2. Goals in this one then for London Seaward, first of all, to Megan Burrows and Shamoy Campbell. But for AFC Wimbledon, their first goal was actually an own goal in the 64th minute before Ashley Goddard in the 73rd, Ashley Hinks in the 75th had a quick fire 2 goals in there for Wimbledon, and then Sandra Martins in the 97th minute sealing the game with Wimbledon's 4th. What that means for the Southeast table, not really a lot of movement in this one either. Teams at the top win, teams at the bottom don't. So AFC Wimbledon, after their victory over London Seaward, they are now on 27 points from their 10 games. They are 6 clear of Norwich, but Norwich have a game in hand. Worthing and Norwich obviously drawing, which meant that gap to Wimbledon did increase slightly. So Worthing stay in 4th place because they already had a better goal difference than Queen's Park Rangers, and Norwich of course stay in 2nd. But as I said, yes, they've got a game in hand over Wimbledon, but that gap has increased by a couple of points. London Seaward remain in 7th after their defeat to Wimbledon. But it was the game of the day down towards the bottom of the table. Cambridge City against Haywards Heath Town, the bottom 2 meeting, and it was Cambridge City who emphatically won by 5-1. That has done a huge amount of good for A, their goal difference, and B, their points. They are now just a point away from safety, and they have a game in hand over AFC Sudbury. Haywards Heath Town moved to the bottom of the table. Still very tight down there though. You feel, looking at it, that it is going to be 2 of those 4. Just looking at the 6-point gap already to Actonians, although there is a game in hand in there. Chesham United have got a game in hand over those 2 as well, so they could start to pull themselves away if they were to win those. You're looking at Haywards Heath Town, Cambridge City, AFC Sudbury. Maybe Chesham can get dragged into that, but I think that requires the teams below them to take some points off them. Chesham, incidentally, lost on penalties to Reading in the County Cup last weekend. While Queen's Park Rangers narrowly beat Dorking Wanderers by 5-4. That sounds like a great County Cup game. And the sort of County Cup games that you don't mind, it's those big ones, it's those 16-0, 17-0, 31-0s that are the most ridiculous. So that does it for the league, because there was nothing in Division 1 South West last weekend, so there's obviously nothing to report. What we're going to do then is we're going to have a look at the results in the FA Cup first round. I say results in the FA Cup first round because 2 of them got postponed yet again. Southampton Women against Brentford and Marine Academy Plymouth against Keynsham Town yet again postponed, which means that they are now going to have to play those this weekend while everybody else is playing the second round. These 2 fixtures in the first round are taking part. I told you it was complicated. That's why I've got a whiteboard. It's why I bought myself a whiteboard for Christmas last year, so that I could write all this down. It goes up to January now. It's great. So yes, those 2 first round games are taking place when everybody else is playing in the second round. But those 2 games that did happen to go through, we'll start with Wigan against Chorley. Chorley took the lead early in this one. They kind of got themselves out to a relatively quick 4-0, relatively quick 3-0 lead. Charlotte Tyers in the 10th minute, Millie Fitzpatrick in the 20th, and Isabel Catlow in the 25th. Relatively quick 3-0 lead. They then added one in the second half through Millie Fitzpatrick, 4-0. But a very, very good effort from Wigan Athletic of the 7th tier, it must be said. because to only lose 4-0 to a Tier 4 side, a very, very good effort from Wigan. It does mean now that Bromley are the lowest ranked side left in the competition, with guaranteed to be in the second round, because obviously Brentford and Marine Academy Plymouth are Tier 5 if memory serves me correctly. I'll have a look at that in a minute when we look at the fixtures, because I've probably got that wrong trying to remember all of this stuff. Plymouth Argyle winning by 13 goals to nil. 5 goals for Ellie Sara in this one, but they took the lead through Mia Endicott in the 11th minute. Then Ellie Sara 14th, 22nd, 32nd, 36th and 37th. So she had a hat-trick by the 32nd minute and then proceeded to score another 2 and scored her final 3 goals in the space of 5 minutes. Then we've got Tamsin Medgill in the 40th minute, Charlotte Whitmore in the 45th plus 4 and the 73rd, Catherine Dixon in the 50th, Rebecca Dandridge in the 53rd and the 79th, and Gemma Rose in the 84th. So what's that? 7 different scorers for Plymouth Argyle. Very comfortable for them in the end against Ilminster Town. So that is the 2 first round results that happened last weekend. As I said, those 2, that's Southampton Women's against Brentford and Marine Academy Plymouth against Keynsham. Those 2 games are going to be this weekend. But let's have a look at the second round games now. That's the next thing. We're going into fixtures. So these are all the second round games apart from the Southampton Brentford, Brentford Tier 6, thought they were, and that Marine Academy Plymouth against Keynsham game that then ties into the Maidenhead and the Bristol Rovers games that are 5 and 4 up from the bottom there on that screen. Obviously, those games aren't happening this weekend because of the first round. So it is. I'd say it's predominantly FAWNL ties in this. There are only 2 games, and I think they are both on this screen. They are Enfield Town against Luton Town, both Tier 5, and Millwall Lionesses against Bromley, Tier 5 against Tier 6, are the only ties that aren't including an FAWNL side. They're the only 2 ties that are guaranteed to have a below FAWNL side into the third round when the championship sides come in. But elsewhere, Wolves against Peterborough, Ipswich Town take on Sutton Coldfield Town. The way the regions have worked mean that Ipswich, right down there in Suffolk, are in the Midlands group. Don't really understand it, but it's obviously to do with the numbers and things like that. Ebbsfleet United of Tier 5 hosting 3rd tier Plymouth. Oxford United of the Southern Prem hosting 5th tier Dartford. And Moneyfields of South West travel to Tier 5 Harringay Borough. There's that all Tier 5 tie of Enfield Town against Luton Town spoken about. Billericay Town host Dulwich Hamlet of Tier 5. Chatham Town against AFC Wimbledon is an all FAWNL tie in there, obviously, as is Wolves, Peterborough, Ipswich, Sutton and the like. So we are going to see quite a few FAWNL sides go out of the FA Cup at this stage, just purely because of the number of them. But I think a fair few will still go through, because I'm not expecting too many shocks from Tier 5 and below over the FAWNL, but I do hope there is 1 or 2, because that's what makes the cup so good. So yes, Chatham Town against Wimbledon, Tier 3 against Tier 4. Then there's that other non-FAWNL tie of Millwall Lionesses against Bromley. Then obviously the 2 ties that aren't happening this weekend: Swindon Town against AFC Bournemouth, all Division 1 South West. Cheltenham Town against Exeter City, Tier 3 against Tier 4, and Plymouth Argyle of Tier 3, after beating Ilminster Town, get rewarded with a home tie against 6th tier AFC Stoneham. I think Plymouth will probably be feeling relatively confident with that one. Elsewhere, Liverpool Feds against Durham Sestra. That's Northern Prem against Division 1 North. Chorley against Newcastle United is the reverse, Division 1 North against Northern Prem. FC United Manchester against Hull City is Division 1 North all in. Stoke City against Stockport County, Northern Prem against Division 1 North. Of course, it's still regionalised at this stage, as I alluded to earlier, so they're all relatively local games. Burnley, top of Tier 3 against 5th tier Alnwick Town. Tough tie for Alnwick. Chester Street Town against Spennymoor Town, 4th against 5th. That's one where you look at it and you go, maybe that is where we could see a shock. Chester Street Town, second bottom of the Division 1 North table. Spennymoor Town going okay in Tier 5. You just look at it and you go, maybe that's where we might see one. I think, in my opinion, that's one of the more likely. But we'll see come next week's show. Darwin against Leeds United, Tier 5 against Division 1 North. Here's another one. Leafield Athletic against Camden Court. Leafield Athletic as well in Tier 4, but second bottom. Only won once in the league all season. Down there in 11th, maybe there is the potential for one there as well. Norwich City of Division 1 South East against Bournemouth St Michael's of Division 1 Midlands, because Norwich City are in the Midlands group as well. Rugby Borough against Solihull Moors. Southern Prem against Division 1 Midlands. You can kind of see that one because Rugby is very much a Midlands based side. Worcester City against MK Dons. So Tier 3 Milton Keynes Dons travelling to Tier 5 Worcester City. West Brom of Tier 3 against Needham Market of Tier 5. And then Nottingham Forest of the Northern Premier Division against Sporting Cows of Division 1 Midlands. And finally, Derby County of the Northern Premier Division against Loughborough Lightning, top of the Division 1 Midlands. Possibly there might be one there. I suspect that Derby will get the better of Loughborough, but I think that might only be by a goal. So that is the FA Cup. That is primarily what is happening this weekend. But there are teams already, because of all FAWNL ties in the first round, and of course the Tier 4 sides that were in the third qualifying round. There are league fixtures this weekend as well. Not many, but there are some. In the Northern Premier Division, AFC Fylde against Halifax. Fylde currently bottom of the table. They will still be in the relegation zone whatever happens this weekend, but this is one of those plethora of games in hand that Halifax have got. A win would see them move up to 8th, but more importantly, it would put them 7 points clear of the relegation zone. You're then moving into 3 games clear of the drop with a win away at AFC Fylde. So that is obviously got to be Halifax's aim. You just look at it in terms of games. At the minute they are 2 games, so one result doesn't go their way, suddenly they're really looking over their shoulder. If you get it up to 3 games, then you do have a little bit more breathing space, but not a huge amount's going to happen in the Northern Premier Division this weekend. Then Halifax, as I said, if they win, will move up 1 place. AFC Fylde, if they win, will move up 1 place, but they'll still be in the bottom 2. A draw would also mean that Fylde move up a place and Huddersfield Town go bottom. But not going to be a huge amount happen in the Northern Premier Division. In the Southern Premier Division, there is just the one game as well. Cardiff City against Hashtag United. This is 10th place Cardiff against 2nd place Hashtag. So Hashtag taking anything from this game will put them back top, but it will mean that they've played a game more than Portsmouth. So they really will want a victory. Obviously, Portsmouth with a goal difference that's currently 26 better than Hashtag United's just mean that it's essentially another point. Cardiff City with a win will only climb up 1 place. This is their game in hand over Plymouth, and incidentally London Bees at the bottom, and one of the 2 they've got over Chatham Town. They really could do with some points here, because they are very, very much looking over their shoulders. Only 2 points clear of the relegation zone. Unfortunately for Cardiff, when it comes to needing to take points, only one team has beaten Hashtag United so far this season, as we near the midway point of said season. And that team, of course, is MK Dons, who did it earlier on this month. Cardiff, I'm struggling to see Cardiff taking anything from this game, which is going to mean they are very much looking over their shoulders. They do then have a break next week or in a fortnight. Next week they do have a break because it's international break again, so Laura O'Sullivan is away with Wales, which means because they lose their goalkeeper, they get the international break. So that's predominantly why they've got games in hand on the teams around them already, and they're about to gain even more. So, Cardiff do have opportunities, but they do really need to start picking up some points. You look at the teams that they have already played. They've played Plymouth in the Cup and beat them. But other than that, you look at the league, they've played Ipswich, Portsmouth, Cheltenham, Rugby, Billericay. They then beat London Bees. That's their only victory. They drew with Chatham. MK Dons in there as well. So they've been playing the teams predominantly towards the top, or kind of lower top half, so to speak, kind of 3rd to 6th, that kind of area. They haven't played a lot of games. They've played London, they've played Chatham, they beat Plymouth in the Cup. They haven't played a lot of games against the teams around them, so perhaps that will help to save Cardiff somewhat. But it does seem to me Ipswich are giving it a good go. If they win a game in hand that they've got some point in the season, they'll get to within 3 points of Portsmouth. But you're looking at very much a split now. Portsmouth hashtag seem to be the two that are going to be fighting it out for the top. We'll see. Obviously, it gets the league tables are very sporadic over these few weeks because there is a full programme on the 3rd, but if anything happens this weekend to stop FA Cup games happening, then obviously that all gets taken out of the water. Southampton's FA Cup game, I know this is in Division 1 South West, but Southampton's FA Cup game being postponed twice has also postponed their County Cup game, which means their County Cup game's moved, and if they win, they can't play the County Cup because of it's going to get extremely messy. But in terms of the Southern Premier Division, Cardiff could do with something. Can I see them getting something? To be honest, no. I think hashtag will be top by the end of Sunday. Division 1 Midlands then. 2 fixtures to talk about in Division 1 Midlands. How exciting. Northampton Town against Sheffield. 5th against 12th. Northampton probably going to stay where they are even with a victory because of their inferior goal difference, but they could go tied on points with 3rd Sporting Cowser, but they will have played a game more. Sheffield, a win for Sheffield, as I alluded to when we looked at the tables. This is one of their games in hand, sort of. I'll explain that. But a win would see them go apart unless Leek and Notts County draw out of the relegation zone. The other game, Leek Town against Notts County, is 9th against 10th. They're both on 7 points. Very similar to what I alluded to earlier with Halifax and making it kind of a 3-game gap. This is an opportunity for both Leek Town and Notts County to make it a 2-game gap to Leafield Athletic. So this is an opportunity because, in all honesty, I think Northampton will beat Sheffield. Opportunity for Leek Town and Notts County to increase that gap to the bottom 2. But it does mean that neither of those two sides are gaining anything. They're not losing anything to Sheffield in terms of games played because they're still going to have played 2 more. So Sheffield are still going to have that gap of the games in hand that they can use. Admittedly, they are at the bottom of the table for a reason, but they have those 2 games in hand that they can use to bring themselves closer if they manage to get something from them. Nothing towards the top is going to change, really. As I said, Northampton are in 5th, and they're not going to move unless they beat Sheffield by 9 goals. And Leek Town, Notts County, they could climb 1 place with a win. Either of them, a draw keeps them exactly where they are, and Sheffield can only climb 1 place. So all the movement is going to be in the bottom half of the table this week. Division 1 North, just one game. Norton Stockton Ancients against York City. So Norton Stockton Ancients are in 10th. They are level on points with the drop zone, but are only outside of it on goal difference. York City are in 8th, and they are only 3 points outside the drop zone. Now, obviously, they will stay there because Chester Street Town and FC United of Manchester are not playing. Norton and Stockton Ancients could climb one place with any sort of victory, or would climb one place with any sort of victory over Doncaster Rovers Bells. However, if they manage to get a 4-goal swing, they could climb 2 places and go above York City as well. Now, both of those sides after this weekend will have played a game more than Doncaster and Chester Street Town around them, which is not so much of an issue for York City, more of one for Norton Stockton Ancients, who are level on points with the drop zone. But Norton Stockton Ancients, the only side not to win in Division 1 North so far this season. They have 4 draws for their 4 points, whereas Chester Street Town and FC United of Manchester both have a win and a draw. So yeah, interesting one to see what happens there, but not both of these sides can't get themselves away from difficulty this weekend. Looking at the Division 1 North table, there is a 4-point gap between York City in 8th and Chorley in 7th, but with Chorley having a game in hand, you feel it's going to be 2 of those bottom 5, York, Doncaster, Norton Stockton, Chester Street Town and FC United of Manchester, that will go down at the end of the season. Of course, a lot could change, but that's what I'm leaning towards. And if Doncaster get dragged into that, the season that they have to move laterally from Midlands to Division 1 North after having such a good season in Division 1 Midlands last year would be, I think, very difficult for them to take. And finally, Division 1 South East, 3 games to talk about in this one. And I say finally because there's nothing in Division 1 South West this weekend. So just these 3 games. Ashford Town in 6th against Worthing in 4th. One of these which is advantageous to the teams at the top, Wimbledon and Norwich, who aren't playing, because obviously both Worthing and Ashford can't get 3 points this weekend. And this is the game in hand that Worthing and Ashford have got over Norwich and Wimbledon. Cambridge United against Queen's Park Rangers, 3rd against 5th. Now, these two sides are level on games played with Norwich. They have one in hand over Wimbledon. But again, ideal situation for these two teams at the top, because you've got 3rd against 5th and 4th against 6th. The 4 teams that are really chasing these top 2 are all playing each other this weekend. So 2 of them at least are going to drop points. Perfect for Wimbledon and Norwich. Cambridge United, no, they are, 9 points behind Wimbledon. This is their game in hand. You feel that if they drop points this weekend and they're 8 points behind, that's going to be very difficult. Wimbledon have only dropped 3 points in the first half of the season, which they are basically at now. And Queen's Park Rangers absolutely must win to stand any chance. But they have already dropped 12 points. You feel QPR need to be perfect now for the rest of the season if they're going to stand a chance. And then London Seawood against Haywards Heath Town down towards the bottom. London Seawood in 7th. Probably not going to climb even with a win. They would need to win by 6 realistically, or have Worthing beat Ashford significantly as well. But they have played a game more than Ashford, so unlikely that London Seawood will move even with a win. Haywards Heath Town, this is their 10th game of the season. With a victory, they could move out of the bottom 2. They would need to win by 2 goals in order to overturn the goal difference, because their goals scored is so much lower. Well, it's 3 lower than Sudbury. So they would need to beat London Seawood by 2 to climb themselves out of the relegation zone, which is not honestly beyond the realms of possibility. But Haywards Heath Town, with only 1 win to their name in the league so far this season, it's not going to be an easy task for them. That win, incidentally, came against Chesham United way back in towards the end of September. It will have been 2 months since they've won in the league, Haywards Heath Town. But Lem against London Seaward in 7th. But in terms of Division 1 South East, it's kind of a perfect weekend for Wimbledon and Norwich, and they're not even playing in the league because the teams that are chasing them are guaranteed, at least some of them, to drop points. Right, that will about do it for this week's Women's Football Chat. So plenty of FA Cup action coming up this weekend. We'll see how many teams from the FAWNL get through to face off potentially against those championship sides, and if there will be any shocks from non-FAWNL sides getting the better of somebody from Tier 4 or maybe even Tier 3. So yes, championship sides come in after this round. The draw we are expecting will be on Monday when the championship sides come in, and then that is the one where everybody really wants to avoid a championship side in round 3 because then there is the opportunity for a Super League side in Tier 4. And of course, particularly with this new money that's come in for the second half of the tournament this year, the further you go, the more money you get. And for some of these clubs, particularly Tier 4 and Tier 3 as well to an extent, but to more of an extent in Tier 4, the additional money that they can get from avoiding these big teams for as long as possible could do them the world of good. But we'll get on to all of that as we head into December and towards the Christmas break. 2 weeks off over Christmas, New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve. Obviously no games in the FAWNL, so we'll have an opportunity there to do a bit of a stock take of the season so far. But that's all to come in the next few weeks. We still have 2 rounds of the FA Cup and league fixtures to go through before then. Thank you very much for watching and or listening to this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat. Be back next Thursday at 6 p.m. We'll see just if there were any shocks. Goodbye.